The god of the depths lies beneath the foundations of the dungeon of fear and hunger, sleeping. It's unknown when its slumber began. Perhaps it never did. Maybe it's always been asleep. Its blood and influence seeps through the dungeon, preying on hopelessness and nihilism. The Depth God is a relatively unknown deity in the wider world of fear and hunger. Only the most learned scholars seem to even be aware of it. Oh, and Ragnarvolda, our favourite cannibal, seems to know a lot about it as well. In the year 1590, its influence has completely overrun the dungeon. Throughout the game you can find its hearts. There's 3 in all, 1 in the thicket, 1 on the 7th level, where you find Lagard, and 1 in Present Mahab, covering the Golden Throne. Stabbing them all will result in the being letting out a reality-shattering howl before it passes away. The great god lay his mouth agape, dead. But an old god does not die, any more than a concept or an idea can, though they can evolve. Nilvan is a new god, and the 4th member of the Fellowship, the current cycle of new gods. Any human can become a new god in theory, and while it gives you incredible power and longevity, new god ascendancy is a trap, set by the old gods. Becoming a new god essentially turns your ego up to 11. The power you get fades away after a few centuries, and their sudden loss of influence on the world almost leads to the annihilation of human civilization. We know of at least 3 cycles up to the present of the game: Betal, Nas'hrah, and the Fellowship, and there have seemingly been countless more. Heroes rise up, travel back in time to the beginning of the new god's ascendancy, kill them, ascend, rule for centuries, become old and increpit, and then new people arrive, travel in time, kill them, and so on and so forth, and on the cycle goes. Every new god seeks to escape this cycle in some way, and Nilvan came up with a plan, completely independently from the other Fellowship members. A bizarre prophecy exists in the world concerning Lagard. It's clear that he's going to be the next new god of the cycle. Such is his strength and power. The power of the old gods is esoteric and confusing, but somehow Nilvan was able to turn this to her advantage. When Lagard gets captured at the Dungeon of Fear and Hunger, Nilvan went to him, possibly through infiltrating the dungeon under the guise of High Priestess Selene. She and Lagard would have sex, producing a child that could, in theory, rival the power of the very old gods, maybe even Olma. Nilvan also sent the vision to Enki while he was on the cross, likely hoping he would come to the dungeon and fulfill a certain mission on her behalf. He, like Lagard, is a special individual, and in previous cycles would probably be a candidate for new god ascendancy. But this cycle isn't like the rest. No, because Nilvan found a way to break it. A soul that radiates the light of an older god. The soul has formed itself inside the body of a little girl. The mother of the Ancient One is the Endless One, and the father is the man from the prophecies. The results of such unholy union are unfamiliar to us. Early on in the dungeon, you can encounter the little girl. She's one of the few people we can find who seems to be sane. She's the daughter of Nilvan and Lagard, and possesses the Ancient Soul, a unique soul type in the game. There seems to be a little girl inside this cage. She is hiding her face from you. What do you want to do? Open the cage. The girl is staying quiet. If you free her from the cage, she'll follow you throughout the dungeon. She doesn't talk too much, but you can have a few unique interactions with her throughout the dungeon. A simple dagger is lying on the ground. It reminds you of your childhood, when your father used to teach you swordsmanship with a similar dagger. It might be a suitable weapon for children, but for adults it's far too small. You could give it to the girl. You give it to the girl, and she seems surprised to get a gift such as this dagger. She is not used to kindness of any kind. In any case, the girl seems excited about the dagger. A simple, crude doll depicting a long-haired man is laying on the ground. The doll gives you chills, and an eerie vibe can be felt from it. You could give it to the girl. Give it to the girl. You give it to the girl, and she seems to love it. You can immediately see her eyes widening in excitement. The girl pets the crude hair of the doll gently. This isn't much, but these are the only acts of kindness she's ever experienced in her life, and she can't help but take a liking to the character that shows her such kindness. And perhaps she would have experienced more kindness in her lifetime if the player didn't have a chance encounter with her mother. A bare-breasted new god appears before you. The woman glances over the girl briefly. Oh, new one. The girl seems nervous around the new god. I must ask of you a favor. Our time has come. This form of existence isn't the answer we were looking for. For mankind to break free, we need more. We need someone equal in size and stature to them. Nilvan rubs her slightly swollen belly. Please, I ask of you, just get my child out of here. Take her to the heart of darkness. I would gladly gift my soul to you, if you were to agree on those terms. I agree. Thank you. Nilvan gives the girl one last gaze. The girl backs away behind you. Nilvan makes a deal with us, to give the player her soul without a fight, and in exchange, all we have to do is agree to take the girl to the heart of darkness. We have no idea what this means, and are wary of battling the beautiful god, so we accept. Nilvan operates in a world of dreams, appearing to us and disappearing. Nas'hrah confirms that Nilvan appeared to Lagard via dreams. Lagard. Right, that man. He sure was an interesting person. His fame, over ground, reached even these dark dungeons. And I followed the treatment he got here closely as well. Not that I'm a part of the whole torturing imprisonment deal going on here these days. I was just observing events from the shadows. Did you know that he planned his imprisonment? Everything that led to him getting caught, taken down, in this darkness, and even the torture he experienced here, it was all part of his plan. This dungeon. It's a special place. There is no other place in the Western world where you could get as close to the gods as here. Like many before him, he wanted to use the power that dwells here. But he knew more. He already achieved the state of dominance over ground. He achieved the enlightenment with the cube he brought here with him. His dreams would soar endlessly with the new goddess visiting him in his dreams every night. And finally, the darkness and the torture he experienced here would rival that of the gods. He got all the keys to become something greater. Not that it would necessarily be the right path for him, but it did make an interesting event unfold. But how would Nas'hrah know this? It makes me wonder if he was in league with Nilvan also. The guard finds himself imprisoned at the 7th level of the dungeon, at the request of a High Priest Selene of the Dark Priests. She's oddly absent from the dungeon during our time there. Earlier I speculated that High Priestess Selene and Nilvan were possibly the same people, but it could also be that the High Priest was actually Nas'hrah, working in conjunction with Nilvan. He does seem to know an awful lot about what's going on in the dungeon, despite hiding in the mines, and knows details about the god's plan that even the new gods don't. Nas'hrah also guides the player to Mahab in the event of Lagard's death. If I'm right and Nas'hrah and Nilvan are working together, the god's survival isn't really necessary. They just need someone to go to Mahab and destroy the last depth god heart. The mysterious organ is pulsating steadily. Cut it open. You cut the veins open and some purple liquid seeped from the open wound. The organ stopped moving completely. This must have been the last one. You hear a faint scream-like sound, echoing in the dungeons. Seems like an older presence has died. Just the idea is a monumental and almost too much for you to hear. In any case, Nilvan seduced Lagard, conceiving the girl. Lagard himself seems rather unconcerned with the fate of the girl ultimately. Nilvan would eventually give birth, and the girl would go on to possess the Ancient Soul, a unique variant that seems to only exist within humans who have tremendous potential. But why? Why do this at all? All the other new gods by 1590 have abandoned all hope. Francois rears dogs for no other reason than to just be a dick, I think. Faultiel is a Reddit moderator and refuses to leave his bedroom. And Ram Shambara seems to have abandoned the Temple of Torment and Mahab altogether. If we destroy the hearts found scattered throughout the game, we inadvertently kill the god of the depths, whom lies sleeping beneath the foundations of the earth. Travelling to its corpse, we find its mouth agape, The last thing it did was scream out as it died. And we have an option to enter it. We really shouldn't. Should we? The Gauntlet is, in many ways, the true final boss of Fear and Hunger. Entering the Depth God's dead mouth, we find ourselves in a bug-infested cavern. The mouth shuts tightly behind us. There's only one way to go. We move past the guards, figure out the traps, survive a brush with the two-headed Crowmauler, avoid the Indiana Jones reference, and finally defeat the Lizard Mage, finding ourselves in a strange, impossible place. Hundreds, thousands of corpses are piled, forming macabre islands of flesh. We traverse over them and make it to the edge of darkness. From there, the girl stands at the edge, completely transfixed by the nothingness. And then, it happens. You cannot see anything in there. What is it? The girl has a concentrated and serious expression on her face. The little girl transforms into several effigies, attempting to find an ideal new form. For what, we're not quite sure. We can only fight, impotently trying to fend off the former girl, who we have protected from the horrors of the dungeon thus far. No matter what, in the end, it wins. The girl is consumed, her humanity rendered down so that she can become a true god for humanity, the god of fear and hunger. The fight against her is futile. She completely dwarfs everything else we've faced so far, be it the Mauler, the New Gods, or even the Yellow King. Ultimately, we are defeated, but not before the god of fear and hunger acknowledges us. The god of fear and hunger acknowledges your suffering. Why do you resist? The thought must have crossed your mind at some point. The thought that you delved too deep. The thought that this would be a one-way trip. So instead of fighting the inevitable, why not embrace it? Just lay down and rest. There is beauty in this darkness that can be harvested and used to usher something new. You never escaped the dungeons. Your efforts would go unsung, but your part in the greater scheme of things was vital nevertheless. You had a vital part to play in the birth of a new god, one that is not a mere new god, but one that rivals the older ones. You had the first-hand experience of witnessing the coming paradigm shift the world is to go through in the new era, an era of the newborn god, the god of fear and hunger. They'll come to know this day as the cruel age, an age where a human-born god would finally rise after millennia of mankind's struggle as the feeble new gods. Maybe your fate was an act of mercy, the last traces of compassion the newborn god shed after her true ascension. Your demise was peaceful after all. So why is this important? The Fear and Hunger god's ascendancy is one of the canon endings for Fear and Hunger. She's referenced by Enki in his skin Bibles, and can even be prayed to. Her birth breaks the cycle of new gods. Humanity is no longer trapped. A god now exists, whose power won't wane over the centuries, for their power is intrinsically linked to the very laws of reality. But from a distinctly human perspective, fear and hunger, the first two things a person experiences when they're pulled from their mother's wombs, and something we have to deal with every day until we die, maybe even after we die. And now she stands as the embodiment of that, pushing humanity to usher in a world where these truths are at least numbed. The Cruel Age. Now you might be wondering, what exactly is the Cruel Age? Well, in my God of the Depths video, I said that the Depth God represented passive nihilism in the story, wherein its practitioners take part in society and its rules and customs, without really believing in them or understanding them, and that this is reflected in the god's most dedicated followers. Fear and Hunger then is the opposite of that coin. They're the god of active nihilism. Active nihilism involves a critical questioning of existing values, and the courage to create new ones. It embraces the recognition of life's inherent meaninglessness, existential nihilism, but sees it as an opportunity for self-empowerment and authenticity. In our own real-world history, the 17th century would see the beginning of what we now recognize as modern society: the Enlightenment, the printing press, factory production, the collapse of monarchy on a global level, the explosion in humanity's scientific understanding. But these things do come at a cost. Overthrowing a monarchy usually means murdering the royal family and any of its supporters, causing massive power vacuums and therefore chaos. Revolutionary France is an example of this. In Termina, it seems clear, for good or ill, mankind is free of the old gods in their lives, and are pushing towards lives of authenticity. Whether that be the pursuit of truth, justice, or simple masochistic pleasure, the god of Fear and Hunger is a game changer for humanity. But oddly, in the events of Termina, the god is strangely absent. Stranger still is that Ulmer, a god whose absence seems to be the catalyst for the new gods in the first place, is pivotal to understanding that game's story. But that's another video for another time. There is of course the question of who took the girl down to the Heart of Darkness, as whoever does it dies. There's no escape from it. It's unlikely she was able to make it by herself, so let's start with who we know didn't do it. Enki, Ragnarvolda, and Lagard almost definitely don't climb into the old gods more. They're either mentioned or prominent in Termina, and the birth of Fear and Hunger explicitly kills the witness, leaving us Das, Kahara, Nas'hrah, and Nas'rah. I've already explained why I don't think it's Kahara in my video on him. I also don't think Das taking the girl is likely, though it would be kind of a fun irony if Das tried to rescue the girl from the dungeon, only to accidentally turn her into an ascended god. So I wouldn't be against Das doing it. If nothing else, it would be a better fate than being a Lagard simp. Though I think the most likely culprits are Nas'hrah and Nas'rah. Nas'hrah, we know, confronts Grogroth at the same Heart of Darkness, possibly attempting to usurp the Depth God's power for himself. In Termina, he appears as a burnt, disfigured head, which is seemingly the end result of his confrontation with the God of Destruction. Nas'rah, meanwhile, I believe, is dedicated to breaking the cycle of the new gods, and if I'm correct, is in league with Nilvan to achieve just that. The birth of a god is an exceedingly rare event. Would a scholar such as Nas'rah really pass up the opportunity to witness such a thing? In the grand scheme of history, it doesn't truly matter who took the little girl to the Heart of Darkness. What's important is that somebody did, and by doing so saved mankind, though whether this was their desired result or not is forgotten. Nevertheless, the girl ascends, finding herself in a very exclusive pantheon. She and Ulmer are ascended gods, equal to old gods in power. But what exactly are old gods? Why have they seemingly abandoned humanity? And what are they doing now? Well, we'll find out next time.